into the September 14th business meeting, the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Those watching at home, we have the full board tonight. We're going to run business as published. We have completed our closed session. We're back into open session. At this time, I'll entertain additions, deletions to the agenda. All right, with none offered, those in favor of approving the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. The agenda stands as published. At this time, we'll open it up to public comment on the two agenda items tonight. It's 3 minutes. Standard constraints on public comment. All right, with none offered, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda 15-054, which includes the minutes of the August 24th, 2015 regular meeting, check register dated September 11th, 2015.
Support.
Okay, moved by Treasurer Van Oss, seconded by Trustee Budney. Any comments, questions from the board regarding the consent agenda items? All right, if none offered, those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. The consent agenda stands approved. We'll move on to action items. Action item number 1. Oh, heck, I guess it's a management issue, so I'll introduce it. And the motion is to authorize the township manager to enter in the August 27th, 2015 proposal with Christie's Wallpapering and Painting to remove and replace the downstairs township hallway wallpaper in the amount of $12,615.50 plus material costs of $2,492. And to further authorize the replacement of hallway baseboard, tile repair, floor waxing, or replace the windowsills as necessary at an amount not to exceed $8,000. Okay, moved by the supervisor, seconded by Trustee Smith, and this time I'll turn it over to the township manager to give the background on our delayed maintenance.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This item, obviously, we've been in this building for 15 years now, and the life expectancy when it was planned, I was reminded by Ted Fournier, was 30 years. So we're halfway through. Obviously, we know in the past few years we've done some roof maintenance, we've done some window maintenance, some tuck pointing, things of that nature. And part of the moisture issues led to some of the wallpaper separations. So, but to get 15 years out of it is pretty darn good. I felt because of the expense and because of us working through our budget the past many years that we would do this in phases, and the hope is next year phase 2 would be upstairs, just as we had put some money in this current budget for the parking lot to do the asphalt repairs. Hopefully we'll go as far as we can. I'm waiting for some numbers there, phase 2 next year. But the original idea that we had in the budget was to hire a part-time person to do this type of thing. And what I learned was it was a specialty item, and every time I talked to anyone that did building maintenance, the chore services, the repair companies, they all said, call Christie. And quite frankly, after talking to the police and fire chief, because they've done work for the at the public safety building, that's where all roads pointed toward. So obviously, when you're dealing with all these different disciplines, you need to make sure things are coordinated correctly. So I enlisted the assistance of Fire Chief Murdoch, who in his previous life was a flooring contractor. Well, isn't that isn't that the appropriate way to describe it? After Duncan spoke to some contractors, took a look at things, did some measurements for me. We came up with an allowance of $8,000 to deal with all the baseboard repair. And while that's out, the idea is we're going to completely strip the wax on the floor and then get that all down. Then the wall and the baseboard will go up over it. So that's definitely part of the maintenance. And we're looking forward to doing this as soon as possible. So any other thoughts or questions, I will be glad to address. And yes, this is budgeted.
That was going to be my question. The total cost of this project's $23,000 and change.
Yes, sir.
We were budgeting $26,000 for this project,
Yeah.
or
26 plus material costs, so we're actually lower than that. So,
all right.
I remember that during our budgeting sessions, this had come up. We deferred the maintenance because we just didn't have the dollars for all those many years. And the building was starting to show the effect of deferred maintenance. So we have a little bit more liquid assets, and it's time to.
We didn't want to address the wallpaper and the windowsills until we made sure we had the outside, the tuck pointing, and the windows recaulked. So we think we're in good shape. It doesn't mean that they're not going to pop up. It's an old building, but we were able to add gutters to the building as well. So we think that's under control.
Well, the taxpayers have gotten almost 70 years of life out of this building. We'll do our share to get maybe another 70. Other comments from the board? Questions? Go ahead, Mr. Budney.
Yeah. Was Christie's the only one you looked at, or the only one that put in a bid?
He was the only one that was interested. Okay. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the board? All right, with none offered, those in favor of authorizing the township manager to enter in the August 27, 2015 proposal with Christie's Wallpapering and Painting to remove and replace downstairs township hallway wallpaper in the amount of $12,615 plus material costs of $2,492, and to further authorize the replacement of hallway baseboard, tile repair, floor waxing, and replace the windowsills as necessary at an amount not to exceed $8,000. Again, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
None offered. That well done, and Christy, we'll look forward to seeing you get to work on it. All right. Move to action item number 2. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to make a motion to dissolve the Communications Commission by revoking Charter 67, Article 10 of the Township Municipal Code.
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Smith, supported by Trustee Budney.
Well, I want to give some history and overview as to why this has come to be. Back in 1987, the Communications Commission was originally established as the Cable Commission. And that was basically to oversee the local cable franchises to make sure that Groseal Township received the appropriate fees and were acting in accordance with their respective contracts. Due to legislative changes at the state level with the Metro Act back in March of 2002, the duties and authorities were modified, basically removing any of the local power for negotiations. So with that, the oversight was basically moved over to the Metropolitan Extension Telecommunication Rights of Way Oversight Authority. Currently, the Commission is charged with 10 duties. 2 of the 10 duties are really no longer applicable, and that would be C and D in your packets. And basically, I'll summarize what those are. C is advise the board of franchise requirements and make recommendations on changes to ordinances. Provide oversight of the Cable TV Regulatory Ordinance A293. Of the remaining 8 duties, 4 of which are handled pretty much directly by the department head. Those are requesting funds and resources, recommending a detailed budget to the township board, encouraging equitable access, and basically with that, that means working with the school district as well as any of the outside organizations and nonprofit groups. And finally, number 4 is collaborate with other municipalities to maximize cost effectiveness and usage. Two of probably what I consider the most important items were really rarely discussed and no tangible outcomes were incorporated, and that would be E and I, and basically those are established standards of quality, performance, and continuous improvement for all township media, and ensure a timely and accurate schedule for GITV and the website. The final two items, F and H, occur intermittently. And basically that is to ensure political neutrality in township media. And there's all sorts of laws governing that. And finally, assist in providing quality programming. Basically, during this entire process over the last several months, we took it a step further. And when looking at our surrounding communities, comprising of Trenton, Woodhaven, Wyandotte, and Brownstown, as well as other like communities with the same sort of populations that we have, around 10,000 people, that included Beverly Hills, Grand Haven, and Grosse Pointe Park, and what they're currently doing, the following was discovered. Only Wyandotte has a municipal service commission, and they oversee the cable because they basically provide their own cable services as a utility to their residents. There are no other cable or communications commissions or there are a lot of C's in this. Committees or commissions for those municipalities that I just mentioned. Again, we took it a step further and contacted the Michigan Township Association to see if they had any information on these particular commissions or committees at, state level. I did speak with several folks over there in regards to cable communications commissions and committees, and basically said that it wasn't tracked at that particular level, but that they said essentially once the Metro Act passed, most of those commissions or committees were basically disbanded. Then when we look at the budget, and looking at the 2015 and 16 budget for the communications department, it totals $153,031. Now, this particular year was an anomaly because we did have a one-time $40,000 capital improvement allocation from the general fund. So the typical budget is around $113,000. $79,000 of that basically goes towards salaries and benefits. So when you look at and you extract all the web maintenance fees and, the continuing education and all the other good stuff, there's just about $22,000 that the commission has any real oversight over. Lastly, and probably the most important, is we did meet with all the department heads on several occasions, both individually as well as groups, to determine if they felt a commission was necessary. And in following up with these particular folks, after the commission had put on hold for almost 6 months, the consensus was basically that it was still not needed. All of this was taken into consideration during these conversations with Mr. Fournier, as well as Dale, Brian, several other board members, was basically to dissolve the commission as it exists today with its current charges. Going forward, whenever a large project is necessary, what I want to make sure everybody up here knows is that it would be recommended that we convene an ad hoc committee, which would be basically a temporary committee convened of basically populated by subject matter experts for a limited amount of time, and as soon as they achieve their particular goal or outcome, then they would be disbanded. One of the things that I want to, keep in mind is that, dissolving a commission is really not easy. This decision did not come easy upon myself, the department head, or anybody else. However, what we do have to look at is when times change, when needs change, and when technology changes, I think it's really our duty as a board to review and consider the duties and authorities of what we charge these commissions with. And we really do have to make an educated decision so that it benefits the community completely.
Other questions, comments for Ms. Smith or the board in general from the board? I've been watching this as we initially planned for 6 months. And Mr. Treasurer.
Well, I'm glad it came back to the commission, because not taking this lightly, because now puts another layer of responsibility on this board as in oversight. What little oversight, or what little duties of oversight the commission had now comes back to the board. And I need to be comfortable that, Dale, number one, you're comfortable with that, because that throws a lot of the onus on you. You are still, Lauren, you're still the liaison to the communications department. So it's going to put some onus on you as to what you got to do. As long as the feedback comes back to us and the people that are going to pick up the duties, however they relate to this commission, I don't have a problem moving forward with it. I just want to make sure that everybody understands the consequences of what's going to happen here, because all of this work is going to come back to somebody, or whatever work that was being done by that commission. If you guys are willing to accept that, I don't have a problem with it.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Other questions, comments from the board? Mr. Budney.
Yeah. I know I haven't been directly involved in this. However, I have heard from various people over this 6 months who have. And I am pleased, number one, that you haven't taken it lightly, because this is not something we should take lightly. However, it is also something that we should be doing. And if we have a commission, committee, whatever, that isn't really needed, then we have to take this step. I like the fact that when necessary, we will be putting together an ad hoc committee to take care of things that need to be taken care of. So I think, I believe they've done their homework, the township manager and the committee that was charged with this, and I'm comfortable with this.
Other questions, comments from the board? Mr. Malvesto?
This is the first I've heard of this. I understand we took a vote. I voted in opposition to it. There has been no discussion. There's been no study session. This is the first I've seen any of this right here. I can tell you right now that I'm very uncomfortable with the action that's taken place without further explanation. I don't find this being satisfactory. Just a bunch of excuses put on a piece of paper as to why we're going to dissolve a commission. I just find it inappropriate, and it's ill timing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Malvesto. Other questions, comments from the board? All right, with none offered, those in favor of dissolving the Communication Commission, and this will be a roll call vote, those in favor of dissolving the Communication Commission by revoking Chapter 67, Article 10 of the Township Municipal Code will vote aye. And I'll begin the, I'll start with Trustee Posias. Aye. And Mr. Friel, you are capturing these? Okay. Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Budney?
Aye.
Trustee Malvesto?
I'm opposed.
Put that as a nay. Clerk Ranka?
Aye.
Treasurer Van Oss?
Aye.
Supervisor Loftus, aye. Motion carries. That will conclude our action items for tonight. We'll move on to the clerk's report. Clerk Ranka.
Mr. Supervisor, there's a police commission meeting tomorrow night. There's a planning commission meeting next Monday, which should be the first one we've had in several months. So excited to get that process back going. And then there is an election coming up on November 3rd. We do have quite a few election inspectors, but we also have several election inspector vacancies. So if you're interested in serving the community on the 3rd, it is a paid position, and it's a great way to give back to the community. So we would be willing to have you as an election inspector. Please stop by the clerk's office or get an application from the website. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Clerk Rankin. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The August 2015 investment report will be available online on my website. All the information isn't in right now. We're pretty busy with taxes. The 2015 summer tax bills were due today, Monday, September 14th. Beginning tomorrow on the 15th, a 1% penalty will be added per calendar month. Mailed, postmarked payments with today's date will be accepted as timely. Anything in the drop box tonight or when we open up tomorrow morning will be considered timely. If further information is needed regarding late payments, please call the Township extension 223 or 232 or look online at grosseal.com. Timely district tax distribution. Collections are made to the schools and the county on a monthly basis, and that's being completed. Now, the banks and the credit unions will not accept late payments. So any payments that are going to come through now needs to come through the township. You can do it by mail or township office or online at grosseal.com. The 17th, the third Monday, which would be next Monday, we'll have a Commerce Park meeting. A couple of items being discussed, a couple of issues being discussed regarding the new runway project. So I urge you to attend if you're interested. I have nothing else.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Treasurer. We'll move on to trustee reports. Trustee Posias.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Greenways and Open Space Committee, as you know, has been sponsoring quite a bit of work on oak wilt. And yesterday, we had volunteers from St. Thomas Lutheran Church conduct oak wilt surveys of the Centennial Farm, of the Playscape area, and the western portion of Grosse Ile Parkway's open space area, which we would like to express our appreciation for their zealous environmental work. Thank you very much. Rehab of the Manchester Trail, the Fifth Strip, is scheduled to begin in October, and it should be completed before the end of the calendar year. And our next meeting for Greenways Open Space will be on October 6th. We ought to be able to tell you some things about the trail at that point. Bike Path Committee is meeting tomorrow night. It'll be a study session. Our bridge rehabilitations are complete, and they are gorgeous. They look like furniture in my eyes, and of course I'm prejudiced, but they do look very nice. And a lot of wood went into those, a lot of hard work. Wes Pfeiffer's company is very skilled, and he worked real well with us and with Dale. Thank you, Dale, for all of the input. We had a nice job done there. Our asphalt repairs, I'm assured, will be starting Wednesday, and they will be several sections of the, don't cross your fingers when I say that, but we have been waiting and things move a little slow, but we're not going to make this a 2-year project this time. This is going to be done by the end of October. That's all I have, sir.
Could I ask you to fill us in on developments on the Tour de Ile? I know that's not a bike path, but...
Well, it's more of a rotary thing, and our treasurer is probably much more deeply involved.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't...
Kind of on the bike path subject, and I want to get as much information as we can on this.
On Sunday, if you go online on the Tour de Ile, you'll find a schedule, but I believe the people that are going to do the 70-mile trip to Northville are going to take... they're going to take off about 7:30 in the morning. The 34-mile, which would include a bike over to Lake Erie Metro Park, is going to gather about 9 or 9:30, and then the Island Cruise, which is going to include several events, and you need to go on the website, which will include several events, will start about 10 o'clock, and it'll all gather right here at the hangar. We have about 150 participants, actually closer to 200 participants as I know now, but we are anticipating a large last-minute rush based on previous events of this type. You get a lot of people just show up, want to ride, so that's be Sunday the 20th.
Pretty much an all event, and I wanted to start emphasizing that this is a big event. There will be a lot of people. Never been on the island before. There'll be lots of bicycles. Again, lots of spandex, lots of colors, but lots of people who are not familiar with the island. We'll have the police and police reserves out keeping separation between automobiles and bicycles, trying to keep everything safe. But it's going to be a big event, so I'm just asking the residents, keep in mind there will be a lot of bicycles, a lot of people unfamiliar with the island. Give them all the room they need. this is a great event for the island. We don't need to have it marred with any accidents or anything. So just be advised, there's going to be a lot of people. It's going to be a different traffic situation. And bear that in mind if you're driving around the island. So didn't mean to jump into that, but I think that's information we need to get out, and we'll continue pushing that out to have just a great, safe event.
Now that the treasurer has saved my bacon on that, I'll just make another mention. Our police department did a stellar job during Barrow Door. Grosea was mentioned quite nicely at the closing event at Wayne State. And to the point where they liked us so much, they're going to alter their route to make sure that we're more of a part of it next year, to the elimination of other places. So, nice.
It's all good stuff.
All good stuff. Showing us off.
Mr. Treasurer, thank you. Mr. Posiask, thank you. We'll move on to, and Lauren, I got to apologize. I didn't catch you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, I will make sure I catch that as when Sharon sends me that, for thing. Mrs. Smith.
It's all right. I'll send my husband instead. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I just have one quick update. The Festival Commission meeting is this Wednesday at 7 o'clock, and we are excited to start planning for Island Fest 2016. Yep, that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Mr. Malvesto.
Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's going to be a fire open house on October 3rd from 1 to 4 o'clock. Starts at 4? It's not, the 4th. I apologize. I'm sorry. It's the October 4th is Sunday, and it'll be from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock at the firehouse. It's always been well attended, and put that on your schedule of things to do. Bring the kids. It's always great.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Malvesto. Mr. Budney.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Because of the oddity of the dates in September, we had our DPS meeting last week, the 8th. Of course, the main thing we're talking about is the roads and the road millage. We're going to have 2 open houses, September 29th and October 13th, hoping people will come and learn what we really want to do with this road millage is have the people educated on why we're doing it and what we're doing. It's up to you to vote whichever way you want, but we want you to know what you're voting on. So I encourage you to come to those. We're going to be speaking at the school board meeting next Tuesday, I believe. We're going to be running something on the Grosea cable. There'll be plenty of information out there for you to understand what's going on. And I encourage you just to give me a call if I'd be glad to talk to anybody about this issue. And my extension's 245. Please get yourself educated on this issue. There is a ZBA meeting this month, and that will be next Tuesday. That's all I have.
Jim, when's the mailer going out? Is that?
It's going out September 15th.
Okay, there's September. Oh, that's like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
that was a
yeah.
timely.
Timely. It's
There's
going out the 15th.
copies of it. If anybody wants to walk out with one tonight, there are copies in the back of the room. It's very informative. I'm sure we'll have plenty at Township Hall. If you have friends and neighbors who need an extra copy or need a large print version, we'll make it for them.
Their copy will go out to every household on the island, and every place we speak, we will be passing those out, and that is the basis of what we will be saying as we make these, do these talks. So. As I say, I can't emphasize enough how we want you to be educated on what's going on.
Okay, okay, thank you, Mr. Buddy. All right, move on to Township Attorney, Mr. Assorti.
Could I ask Mr. Assorti a question? Just any updates for us on anything?
Leading question.
There was a status conference today on the property, and the court, who is still reluctant to force the demolition of the buildings, is continuing on. There are, it's still being actively offered for sale. The court is fully aware that the township will not approve or participate in any way in a sale that involves anything other than the immediate rehabilitation or hopefully demolition of those buildings. And the current individuals involved in managing that and overseeing that with court discretion are fully aware of it. And our hope is that the next status conference, which is set for November, will not have to take place, as well be done.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Sardi. It's unfortunate this has to drag on as long as it does, but that's just the way the legal system works in this case. So and for the police and fire who've had to keep an eye on it and keep it safe, thanks, guys. I think there's an end in sight. I hope. All right, Township Manager, Mr. Riem.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. One thing I'd like to add to Trustee Budney's information regarding the upcoming millage, that information brochure is published on groseal.com under news, and I think it's the second or third one down on our homepage. So that's great explanation of the program. And I want to show this picture, and I'll be very brief. This is the floating universal access kayak launch. Installation was finished this morning at the south end of the Water's Edge Marina, and we anticipate the parking lot contractor to begin work this week or the very beginning of next week. The area here on the far left is the seawall that was installed, which is hinged and attached to this gangplank type deck, and this is the actual floating pier that goes up and down on these poles. And parallel with that, you can see the rails beyond it is the actual roller ramp, if you will. It is not open at this point in time. The parking lot work and the backfill behind the wall needs to take place, but I would expect we'll plan the grand opening in the very near future. And with the weather and with the contractor schedule, so I apologize in advance, it will probably be short notice. So, but nevertheless, I just wanted to report to the board and the community that the actual launch itself has been installed and completed. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Riem. All right, a few odds and ends here, and many of these are just utility announcements, and there are flyers in the back of the room for all these. The next Wayne County Household Hazardous Waste Collection will be on Saturday, October 10th from 8 to 2 at the Wayne County Community College Downriver Campus. That's on North Line Road. Flyers for this in the back of the room. This is fun. The 4th annual Groseal Animal Shelter Fun Run and Walk will be Saturday, September 19th. There are flyers for this in the back of the room. Starts early in the morning. There's a 5K run and a 1-mile fun run and walk. Well-behaved dogs on... Didn't say anything about cats or anything else. Well-behaved dogs on leashes of 6 feet or less are encouraged to be accompanied through this. And it all finishes up at Centennial Farm. There's a lot of other activities going on there. For those of you who haven't seen everything we have to offer over there from our rec department, it's really become a great complex. There's just going to be plenty to do, and it ought to be a lot of fun. Okay, so Wally, you covered the bike rides we've got coming up in the BPAC. Groseal Heritage Tree Registration Entry Form. So Mrs. Frucci gave us a presentation on this at the last meeting. The Heritage Tree Registration forms are available in the back of the room. It's an ongoing event, but this year's deadline is October 1st, 2015. If you have a heritage tree, I don't know what legal implications this brings in, but there are forms for that. A new development, Detroit Symphony Orchestra will be appearing at the Wayne County Community College Heinz Prechter Education Performing Arts Center on Thursday, September 24th at 7:30 p.m. Free event, but reservations are required, and you can call the DSO box office at 313-576-5111 to reserve your ticket. Again, flyers for this are available in the back of the room. A couple other things coming up. We have the Grosse Ile Athletic Boosters have their golf outing on September 26th. It's at the Grosse Ile Golf and Country Club. I don't have flyers for this. You might have gotten one in the mail. If not, I will make flyers available. We'll get on the website and we'll encourage you to go to the school's website, but we can probably provide a link over there. This is again, it funds the athletic boosters who pay for those things that the Board of Education can't pay for the various sports teams. And my last, one more shout out from a neighbor of mine. There's no easy way to put this. A neighbor of mine passed away unknowns to anyone. Grosse Ile Police, of course, and Chief Murdoch made the response, found the body, and began that arduous process of interment and turning the process over to the family. What I need to pass on to both of you chiefs was the deep appreciation when my neighbor's brother came into town and was there to start that portion of cleanup, and he was advised, don't go in there, get yourself checked into a hotel. Here's the company you need to call. It needs to be remediated. He followed their advice, was glad he did. And when he was given the all clear to bring his family in, again, just the professional family-type treatment he received from Grosse Ile Police, Grosse Ile Fire. How do I thank him, Brian? How do I thank him? Well, say thank you. So I'm taking this moment to say, on behalf of the family of Bev, Irv Molzan, and David and his family who are coming in to take care of the estate, thanks. Thanks, guys. That concludes my report. So at this time, we'll step to the discussion item. And since this discussion item was requested by Trustee Budney, so I'm going to ask him to lead off. He had some questions, concerns, and things he wanted to discuss. Trustee Budney.
Right now, I'd just like to make the statement that I'm very, very interested in hearing what my fellow board members have to say about this. This is something that's been going on for quite some time. We got very limited information on this project, which is one of the reasons.
Jim, you might want to tell them what the subject is.
Okay. Yeah,
that might be a good idea. It's the splash park. It's the splash park. And like you say, this has been going on for some time. I mean, I think it began back in February or March when it first just came up. I mean, the whole idea carried through. At this point, all I want to say is the culminating event was our study session at the August 10th, before the August 10th board meeting. With everything that's gone on, I mean, what I'm looking for is for that contract to be canceled. And this is a very important point. All the opposition to this has been basically we haven't gotten enough information on it. No one that I know of is calling for killing this project per se. But in order to do it right, we need the right information, and we just have never gotten it. And that'd just be my opening comments. I want to hear what the other board members have to say, and then I'll come back.
Let me just maybe steer this direction. When you say, how do you just word it? You didn't want to kill the project. You wanted to know more about it, but canceling the contract kills the project.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. We can start over. We can start over and do it the right way, and have all the information presented to the board before we go forward on it.
I'm still at a loss.
Okay.
If we cancel the contract,
yep, that's done.
Over with what? Start over to do what?
Well, to look at it.
These are the.
Brian, to look at it and see. We were given one splash park. That's it. Like one company, one splash park, one size. We got no review by the attorney, no review by the engineers, revised plans not brought to the board, No site plans, no drawings, no contracts. We got nothing but an idea. A picture of what it was going to look like, a huge estimate of what it was going to cost, and that was it. That's all the information we got. If we move forward on a project, if this board moves forward on a project and that's all the information they have, quite frankly, all of us should be kicked out of here. That is not the right way to do business.
Jim, I don't know where to start.
Well, and Brian, I don't. Please, I just let's hear from the other board members. We know you're for it. We know I'm against it. I'm against this contract and the way it was put together. I'm hoping to stay away from
going
what
to
happened.
ask Mr. Riem to. Do we have a copy of the timeline we can put on the overhead? Do we have a copy of the timeline we can put on? Just put it on over the gross seal and project it on the overhead.
White document, I don't know.
Yeah, it may, and the prints.
Let's give it a try. I know it's small print because there's a lot of material there.
Yeah, it's...
So while that's getting focused, Jim, if you want comments, I'll be happy to give you my comments.
Yeah,
now, right? So I was definitely for the splash park. I still think the splash park is a good idea. The issue I have now is that there's a number of things that have come up, but I think it is a good time to put a pause in this idea right now. And primarily it's the fire that had complete loss of all the equipment in that maintenance building. I'm not sure how we're going to come out of that financially. I think there's still some questions on how much insurance money is going to cover, since a lot of that equipment was very old. So I am I'm still a supporter of the splash park, but I do think it's time to put a pause in this until we can figure out where we're at with the fire. And then also there's a number of other things going on in the community right now that I think we need to kind of take pause with, and one of which is the road millage as well. So those are my two main comments.
And we are in a pause mode, Mr. Treasurer.
This project was brought forward by Brandy, who did a research. Research was based on a lot of statistics throughout the country, throughout the nation, and even throughout the state. The Recreation Commission brought it forward with 100% vote that they were for it. I'm not sure, other than the research that Brandy gave us, I'm not sure how much research there was put into it, but it was put forward to them. And when it came to us, I was asked, I have some mechanical background, and of course I was asked about the cost of maintaining or perhaps replacing the kiddie pool that this was designed to replace. My first thought was, within the next 2 or 3 years, we're probably going to have to put $150,000 into that kiddie park. Going to need a new boiler. The pool itself is going to have to be rejuvenated or redone. So I was just kind of basing on the facts that maybe we shouldn't put any more money, whether it be $150,000 or whether it be $25,000 or whether it be $5,000 into the kiddie pool based on the participation or the usage of that pool. So I looked at this whole project as a moving step forward. And, in reality, a program like this for the community's perspective should be an exciting event. And we're moving forward. We're going to enhance our recreation department. But the feedback that's coming back, and a lot of the feedback's coming back through probably some bad information that's going out there. Feedback is not very positive going forward, which leaves me at a precarious area. So I decided to do a little research on my own locally to see whether Grosse Ile really fits into the consensus of the state and national statistics. So I went to Brownstown. I talked to their people. They have a nice splash park there, pretty effective splash park there. It hasn't been a revenue producer, but they told me that they didn't intend it to be a revenue producer. They took the funds out of the recreation, which they had a lot of. They've got a much bigger municipal base than we do. And I talked to Trenton, and theirs is far less than a revenue producer. And they did hope it would be a revenue producer, but didn't turn out that way. So, but the general consensus is here's 2 splash parks within a short drive of Grosse Ile. And if we were anticipating any growth in usage here based on communities outside of our area, because you need to drive to Grosse Ile to get here, that we probably, my thought was we probably were not going to find that. So we were going to have to support this with Grosse Ile residents, which I'm not sure, I don't know, speculation on my part, but I'm not sure that if it is a cost plus or revenue plus investment, it would be so minimal that the payback would be so far out I'm not sure we could really honestly consider it that. And then lo and behold, what happens on top of all of this? We have a major fire at the community center, or at the Water's Edge facility. We lost all of our equipment. Been scrambling. We're going to have to replace it. We know that they're going to depreciate that equipment. We have no idea. We're pretty sure we'll get the facility back, but for the things that we're going to have to do there, we don't know what that's going to cost us on a very limited recreation budget that we currently have. So right after this thing took place, right after I suggested, and then of course we've got a huge millage issue coming up in September where we're going to ask the voters whether they want to participate in infrastructure upgrades, and we keep asking. So I addressed Brandy, I went to her, and I went to Brian and Dale and suggested that maybe we revisit this whole thing. My wishes were misunderstood, I guess, and part of it had moved forward with it. So my personal opinion at this point, from what I've learned in the background I've done, and shame on me, I probably should have done this before I voted on it. But moving forward, I think we need to put this to bed. I'm sure we're going to have some operating costs with the contractor. I'm sure he's got some time invested. I would hope that because of the business he's in, he would be reasonable in that respect. I don't know what that number is. I can't tell you what that number is. But if it does not come out to be reasonable, I guess our attorney makes a few more dollars because we'll probably address this in a court of law. Reasonable costs are reasonable costs in expenditures. We did cancel this. I think we put a stop to this. Right. And we signed a contract on what date?
July 31st, or July 27th.
27th. So roughly they had 20 days. So I can't really see that there was any production influence on this. And I really, it doesn't resolve our issue because our issue is coming back that we're going to have to do something over there very soon with the kiddie pool and that investment. So I think it's time to put this thing on the back burner, take a look at our cost and revisit it as I suggested we do right after we pass this thing in the spring, and pay the contractor off and bring them back in when we know financially we're ready to move forward with this, and we know what it's going to cost us to do the kiddie pool or whatever upgrades we have to do over there, or consider closing it, whatever. So those are my views.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, thank you. bad. I think a splash park is a solution, but I don't necessarily know that it is the solution. Everybody has brought up so far that has been speaking some really good points. One of the things that I would like to see this board look at is, we've got a bunch of recreation department properties, and maybe we need to look at centralizing those properties or those facilities. I brought that up at a study session in the past, and I don't know. I think if I look at that pool and that facility, what I see, and not with my trustee hat on, but as a resident hat on who goes by every Thursday to go play golf, I see bushes that are unkempt. I see weeds growing. I see no shade. I don't see any umbrellas. I don't see any tables where somebody can sit down and actually have a meal from Sharky's. I think that facility could be a lot more with a lot less money. I think if we investigate putting up some commercial grade sail shades potentially. I'm in my 40s. I don't want any more wrinkles. I want shade. There's no shade. There's no trees. There's no umbrellas. Put some Adirondack chairs. Bring in some color. Maybe pipe in some tropical music. Make it a place where people want to go and that they will stay. And if there's tables out there, maybe we take the kiddie pool and put a bunch of sand in it and make it a sandbox. I'm just saying that's a cheap alternative. Maybe we put a platform over it and we create a dining space. I'm not sure. But I like the idea of a pool. I like the idea of a splash park. I don't like the idea of a $600,000 splash park. So.
Other comments from this side of the room? Mr. Malvesto.
The topic of this discussion was the splash park. Primarily, it's the rescission of the contract for the splash park. First off, I'd like this letter entered, Brian. I'd like this letter entered into the official minutes, please. The unfortunate thing is what took place and the way it took place, and it's not the child egginess.
Just as a point of order, what is that letter? It's going to. It's
a letter that was written by you, sir.
Well, then let's read it before.
I'm going to.
Okay.
I intend on reading this letter. Back on August 10th, we had a study session. It was suggested that I called the study session. I did not. I called for on two different occasions. I emailed both the township manager and the rec manager asking for a short meeting, of which neither of my requests were answered. When I did show up on Friday morning, I was told that the rec manager wouldn't be there. Mr. Loftus was there. I said, "You're wasting my time." I intentionally did not invite Mr. Loftus to the meeting, my own reasons. But at the meeting, there was a study session, and we were allowed to discuss different aspects of the recreation department, and it naturally turned to the splash park. And it was suggested by a number of the board members that this project be put on hold. What we didn't know at the time was the contract had already been negotiated, altered, and a check had been issued. But our supervisor didn't feel that was in our best interest to know this at the time. Later on that evening during the meeting, one of the residents asked if any monies had been spent at that point in time, and the response was, "I'll have to investigate." Well, on the 27th, the contract had been signed. July 27th, the contract had been signed, and on the 31st, a check for $125,000 had been issued. So I find it interesting that a week and a half later, we have to investigate. I'm going to read the letter. I may leave out some of it, but I'm going to start right here. And it was addressed to the Board of Trustees, the Township staff, the Community Recreation Commission, and Grosse-Ile Township. So I'm assuming everybody has received this. And it says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I called for a Monday's evening study session at the request of Trustee Malvesto, who, through the Township manager, stated he wanted the splash park discussed. With no agenda provided to me or the clerk's office, I decided an overall assessment of our recreation department and the status of several projects was in order." again, I have my 2 emails requesting a meeting, but not a study session. I never requested that. Since our recreation department is a treasured community asset with one of the many attributes of our township that contribute to our quality of life, and I'm gonna cut that. Our recreation department manager was hired in November. I'm gonna leave that out as well. We're going forward with the splash park. We approved the purchase of the park with a 4-2 favorable vote. Trustees Bundy and Smith opposing. Trustee Malvesto was excused that evening, but had voted to approve the park at the 30 April CRC meeting, and with no contradicting statement on his part in the interim, I must assume he remains in support of the project. I appreciate you assuming what my thoughts are. I have since heard rumors that I have been acting deceptively and have not disclosed the fact that we are progressing. With a 5-2 board vote, I'm sorry, it was a 4-2, I signed a contract with Vortex, my responsibility as legal agent for the township, and authorized Mrs. Darzniak to write the initial check, which will lock the agreement price. As a study session, I was not aware the check had been written. I was informed later that evening. Again, a week and a half later, we weren't aware of that. I will admit my oversight in not announcing the fact that I had signed the contract, but I signed him regularly, and the topic never arose. With 2 residents present at the session who revel in spreading disinformation, I'm not unhappy that we avoided a confrontational display later that evening. What I find most distressing here is this next paragraph. I had previously made an agreement with Treasurer Van Oz to prioritize the upcoming road millage and therefore delay any visible progress on the park. I do not consider this deceptive, just an acknowledgement that appearances can be problematic. I think we can all agree that too many residents cannot or will not understand the legally separate funding sources and confuse these 2 projects. So I'm assuming on this paragraph that I cut a deal to keep this project secret, and our residents aren't intelligent enough to figure out the difference themselves. I'm sorry. And then it says, I remain the chief executive officer of this community, and in my nearly 7 years, I'll make copies of this available to anybody that wants it. And it's signed by our supervisor. This was dated August 12th. 2 days after the August 10th meeting, where we were allowed to discuss this, and it was actually suggested that we put this project on hold. I'm sorry. That is the point of this discussion tonight. Not the splash park, not what it involves, not what it'll replace, and not the cost. It's the actions that took place and keeping it from this board. This is a board of 7 people, not of 1 person, chief executive officer or not. I'm sorry. I'm distressed about this, and I hope that you all understand the point of this discussion tonight. This is not only to rescind this contract, but to put this project on hold indefinitely until the residents tell us they want it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Friel, that letter will not be entered into the record because it was edited. I'm going to finish the part just the final paragraph. It was edited because you read the portions of it you wanted to read, not all of it. If it's going to be entered in entirety, it'll be read in its entirety.
Read the entire letter.
I'm going to read the closing paragraph. I remain the chief executive officer of this community, and in my nearly 7 years in this position, and through 3 incredibly brutal election campaigns, I have never lied to anyone, for anyone, or about anyone. If anyone has any questions about what we as a township are doing or attempting to do, just ask. You all have my cell phone number. I'm in the office almost every day. I'm willing to meet with anyone to discuss this or any other relevant topic.
At the study session, you were more concerned about your legacy than you were about the welfare of this community.
That is your opinion, Mr. Malvesto.
It was not an opinion. It was a statement that you made. My legacy going forward.
Did I say my legacy that evening?
Yes, you did. In the study session, you said you were concerned about your legacy. Well, this is your legacy, Mr. Supervisor.
All right, let's step back to the 5-2 support. I'm sorry, Mr. Malvesto, at the Community Recreation Commission meeting, your final comments on this were, I support this project 100%. You have never told me since then, or the township manager, that you have changed your mind.
You have a very short memory, sir. We have had this discussion more than once. I asked you more than once, sitting in your office, to delay this project.
We
You
have
seem to
delayed the
forget
project.
this. No,
We
it was
have
not
delayed.
it was not until recently. It was not prior to the study session. You signed a contract. You negotiated a project. You changed the scope of that project, and you did not involve anybody else, the CRC, this board, or anyone else. You did it on your own.
Okay, clearing up a couple points. No, there were no engineering drawings because we don't get those before the engineering gets done. I signed the contract because that's what I do. That's my legal
You
responsibility.
changed the project.
I
Whether
do-
you
we-
increased it or whether you reduced it, you changed the scope of the project as the CRC you claim approved.
Right, I did because it was physically impossible to include the water journey because of
You
infrastructure.
failed to involve or inform your board. You did it on your own
I
with
did,
no one
and
else's
I would do it
input.
again. So that's irrelevant. We did not have
Irrelevant.
we didn't have the physical infrastructure to include the water journey. We deleted it. It took $50,000 off the cost. If you want,
If you had a water feature for $50,000, it wouldn't have made a difference. You did not involve the recreation department nor this board.
all right,
You did it on your own.
You'll get a mea culpa from that. All right.
Thank you. That's the only thing.
So, like I said, it's my job to respond to sign the contracts that are approved by the board. This was approved. Most of our contracts don't go to legal review. This does not require a site plan.
$600,000 review
It
contract
doesn't-
does not go to review? Since when?
Most of our contracts don't go to legal review. It was approved by the board. It's a waterworks project. And I understand you're upset, Trustee Malvesto, but
I'm upset because you allowed us
I
to be a
will.
bunch of fools. You allowed this conversation to take place on August 10th, knowing full well that you had already signed a contract and cut a check. And you allowed us to have the discussion and did not give us the courtesy of telling us at that time what you had already done. And you want to see anger? I'll show you anger.
I think we're seeing it.
Yes, you are, and justifiably so.
All right, well, we're not at a discussion session anymore, but does anybody want to discuss anything, Mr. Treasurer?
I would like to suggest, we've had some comments by board members. The project is currently on hold. I think this might be a time, excuse me, this might be the time for a motion to decide what we're going to do moving forward, whether we're going to request to this board to terminate that contract, whether we're going to take it out of the hold mode and move it forward. Hollering at each other is not going to do anything.
Mr. Posey asks.
Pardon?
I will when my time comes. Thank you.
Go ahead, Wally. I'm sorry. I just
Go
I'm
ahead,
just
Ted.
trying to bring
Please-
this thing
please
down.
go.
I just think it's time. Let's make a decision. We got a project that's on hold right now. It was put on hold 18 days after the project started. The contractor was informed of that condition, and I don't want to leave here tonight without knowing what's going to happen.
Mr. Posey, ask.
Thank you. I was only on the periphery of the decision project. This is a project that was instituted and born in the Community Recreation Department. And I thought that the Recreation Department did a very good job of presenting it, enough so that the project was sent up to the Township Board looking for a recommendation. At the time of the recommendation, Mr. Malvesto was not at that meeting, at our board meeting. And a vote was taken. The vote was 4-2 in favor. My impression of this is that when we have a Township Board decision that is 4-2, that authorizes the Township to go forward with a project, that going forward with the project sometimes means putting down a deposit. I don't think there's any secrets about the amount of the deposit. The only issue that I had with it is that I wish it would have come out that we had written the check and sent it, because we already did. It was fact. But it wasn't done behind anybody's back. It was an approved Township Board process. Now, at that same meeting, I did make comment, what harm would there be having a little cooling off period about it because it had become contentious. And also with the fire, and that's a factor that I frankly hadn't gotten into as far as its financial impact on the township, and we really don't know yet what that will be. My bottom line says we didn't do anything wrong, but I don't see anything wrong with delaying and holding up and letting a calmer perspective prevail and fixing this. I say we keep our splash park. I fully support it. I do say that we should sit down and get this out of our system. This is not the way I want to be a part of a board screaming at each other. We're going to settle this. We're going to settle this like gentlemen. But, Mr. Supervisor, you had a 4-2 decision to sign that, and I support that. If you wish to entertain some motion that says let's have a cooling off period and a reexamination of our motive, I don't have a problem with that, and I never did have a problem with that, as you know. But to suggest that anything was done below the board or deceptively is not fair to us, and you especially.
Thank you, Mr. Posias. Regarding a motion tonight, this is our study session. We can't propose a motion because we don't know what the exit costs are. In 2 weeks, there's no more money being spent. We've got 2 weeks till our next board meeting. We can study the costs of an exit, a substitute program, what it would cost to fill the waiting pool, what it would cost to restore the waiting pool. I've got some numbers now, but they would just be numbers. But we've got to know all the ramifications of changing course on this. Now the temperature's cooled down a little bit, so I'm not going to pick up a few things that were said that were not exactly accurate, except at that study session, which I called at the request, and not at my request, but at that study session, I did not know the check had been cashed or cut. I did not know a check had been written. When I signed the contract, that authorized, of course, the check to be processed because the contract was initiated, but I did not know a check had been written. So I couldn't say a check had been written because I didn't know it had been written, and nobody asked. I would have either asked the treasurer or the finance director if the check had been written. That didn't happen. Other questions, comments? Mr. Budney.
I agree with Ted that I think we need to move forward on this and get it out. I think what we've heard tonight, and I mean, there's a lot more I could say, but I think enough has been said. I would like to see some type of motion at our next meeting. I think we have. I truly believe, because of everything you've heard here, and the way this has been handled, that this has to be canceled. And I understand, and that's great that we have a couple of weeks. Let's see what it is. But as far as I'm concerned, whatever it is, and we need to look at canceling this. I'm just going to say that it's interesting when all this is going to take place, the dates it's going to take place versus the vote on the millage. There's just too many things that just look odd, and I think the best way to do it is to clean the slate and start over. And I agree with what Treasurer Van Oss said. Let's very quickly, whether it's tonight or the next meeting, get a motion to either proceed or cancel.
Well, I do feel it'd be improper to do it tonight. We don't have enough data. We have 2 weeks. No funds are being spent. It gives us an opportunity to research, again, the costs, pro and con, what our options are, what it's going to cost us.
Well, I don't want this. I would not like to see this muddied up with $4 billion.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we've stayed away from the facts so far on this in a number of areas. So, no, let's stick to the issue. The issue is the Vortex contract. That's the issue. That's what we should be sticking to.
Well, but Jim, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. We know we have a money-losing enterprise in the waiting pool. We know we're going to lose, and where are my numbers? About over $11,000 a year to keep it going as is until a big expense comes, and then it'll be more than that. But it's $11,000 a year. Just, it's going to cost if we do nothing. If we fill it with sand or something just temporarily, that's about $4,000. And Brandy got me these numbers today. To pave it over completely, about $25,000. So it's a safe deck area we could use for other facilities. So those are some of the options. Is there, like I saw at a couple places, like a mini park with some dump buckets and some odds and ends that would be expensive, but not this expensive. It would be a stopgap. That may be an option. So let's expand the horizons. It may circle back to the best thing is just to bulldoze the whole thing, or it may be to go with the splash park we have. But right now, we don't have the data to make an informed decision tonight. Rush decisions are really good ones. Mrs. Smith.
What are the cancellation fees? I'm sure that there's some...
That's something else we don't know.
Right.
And we need to know what those sunk costs will be to make a reasoned decision.
Just to comment on that, there was nothing in their contract except litigation fees if the thing should go to litigation. And at that point, it would be funds spent would be considered cost of litigation. They're saying, I think there's been some mention, officially, but there's been some mention that it was a 25% restocking fee, but we canceled the contract within 15 days, so I don't know what has to be restocked. And that would have to be something the attorney would have to address. If the company is unwilling to participate in a cancellation and maybe revisiting this thing a year from now, which I kind of doubt that they would, because that's publicity is they probably don't want. So I think we need to get that number from them, tell them we're done. We do not move forward on this project. How much have you got invested and what kind of money do you want? I mean, it's pretty hard to hit us with a restocking fee if we don't have anything, if they didn't build anything. But.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's laws. I've been in court on issues like this in my business where contracts were canceled, and you're certainly entitled for any expenses that you've...
Sure. Yeah, I just didn't know if anybody knew what those numbers or percentages were.
Well, we don't, because I don't... Okay. It was canceled in such a quick time, but right. I think it'll end up in a negotiation by the time it's done. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, other questions, comments, additions, deletions? All right, well, I'll close the study session. I'm sorry, the discussion. Thank you. This moves us on to public comment. I think that's where we are. Okay, I see your hand, Mrs. O'Connor. All right, 3 minutes. Introduce yourself. Factual statements only. Go.
Thank you. Uta O'Connor, 8148 Island Boulevard. Couple of points of order here. Yeah, this is a public meeting. A discussion item can result as an action item, so this board could have acted if it so chose. So you can take a discussion item. The board has many times taken a discussion item and acted on it that same evening. So you could have made that decision.
May I respond to that statement? The reason we didn't is because it would have been as bad as the original vote because we don't have all the facts.
And that's fine. I just wanted it to be clear to everybody that you could have made an action, even to reflect that you don't need me, Ted, to write your motions. You do a fabulous job. Secondly, that the letter that was submitted, as long as the letter is submitted in the minutes in its entirety, it can be submitted into the record. Thirdly, this conversation that you had here tonight, you should have had that before your May 11th vote. And that's what's so embarrassing about what happened here tonight. And as a board member, might give you some pause. But I'm glad you finally had this conversation. I looked at the minutes. The public record is extremely thin. I'm sticking to the facts. Nothing I'm telling you now is not on the minutes on Demand on our website. So, Trustee Smith on June 8th is actually quoted as saying that there was chatter about the splash park and its impact on this possible millage vote. So this topic was known much earlier than now. And you were right to be concerned, because there's so little information. We don't have a public newspaper. Many people don't watch the meetings or have any other source of getting this information than maybe looking up the minutes. There's nothing in the minutes about costs, site plans, engineering review, all the stuff that this board has put so many projects through, where we've pissed off the audience because we talk too much. Somehow that always landed, in that area. But where you ask the tough questions to find out, does this make any sense? How many times has this board held the feet of the person here to the fire and saying, where's your grassroots support? The skating rink, how long did we keep Mr. Moore pushing and pushing and pushing to get money and support in place and signatures? He filled this room with people who were hot for that skating park. And it took almost 10 years and he got that skating park. Okay, but he showed public support. The football fields that were in a trade with the airport, that took public support. People flooded this room because they were hot about getting those football fields for their students. The basketball court, the volleyball court at Water's Edge, all of those came about because people from the community pushed those projects forward. This project had none of that. I looked at the record. There were like 6 or 7 comments against it. There was only 1 comment for it. And then that person turned against it later in another conversation. So where is the groundswell of excitement for this project? Lauren, Trustee Smith, you brought up an idea, a big sandbox. Right? That's a wonderful idea, just out of the blue, really. But, look at cheaper options. I mean, this township board is known for its fiscal conservativeness. This community is known for its fiscal responsibility. And we count on you to look at that. So when it comes to voting on a millage, it may not seem like it's related to a splash park, but when it looks like you're going to blow $600,000 out of the general fund that we have worked so hard to protect. We haven't given raises. We have a skeleton staff, right? We've done a lot of things that were painful to stay fiscally responsible.
All right, Mrs. O'Connor, you're 4.5 minutes into your 3-minute time. Would you be kind enough to take that timeline, which explains when, where, and how this just for your own information, and it explains how many times the splash park has been discussed at the board, budget meetings, community recreation. I mean, it's there. This is it, online? And that is your copy.
Is this online?
That is not.
Did I have to come to this meeting to get this form? And will other people? It was for internal,
Mrs. O'Connor. It was for internal use, but it's yours now. It'll be published now.
But you just answered my question.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Connor.
I'm sorry you have to deal. Thank you, Tom.
Public comment, Mr. Clark. Oh, okay, Mrs. Walker. Sorry.
Hello, Kathy Walker. I have a timeline myself, and it's all from public record. I FOIA'd a bunch of stuff, and I'd like to go through some of the points with you. Again, I'm only showing things that are not in the minutes on demand that you can't find yourself. To me, it starts with February 26, 2015, Community Recreation Commission minutes. And this is a quote, quick presentation of proposal involving, and this is their words, from the budgeting hearings and conversations about pool repair, about splash pad for kiddie pool at Water's Edge. Phase 1, $261,640. Phase 2, $292,730. Total $554. That was $370. That was the beginning of it. On March 4th, there was a Vortex meeting presentation with unspecified GA Township representatives. That's the first thing here. This is one of the things I FOIA'd. I don't know who attended it, but there was a meeting. Okay, that's in March. March 4th. Plenty of time before the budget is due. April 1st, GI Township fiscal year budget does not identify splash park expenditure. If you make a check and you take money out of cash, there is another side of the entry. I am not a CPA, but I know that. You have to show that. It's not in your budget. You had things going on in February that I can document that you did not consider adding it to the budget. Makes me very questionable. I did not know about the Splash Park overview on the 13th of April. Great. April 30th, Communication Commission agenda, old business. They went back now from February to April. Notice they missed March. Community Recreation Commission agenda, old business, Splash Park resolution, Community Recreation Commission minutes, Splash Park resolution, and they voted for it. Okay. Here's the next one. May 11th, 2015, Township agenda, 6:45 study session, Township lawn care bid. It was amended, but not for the public to see. In the way you know it was amended is because in the Township minutes, 6:45 study session, Township lawn care bid, and add splash park discussion. The splash park discussion item added after agenda issued to public. Public would not know. I happened to be there, just lucky. But most people would not know that that was being discussed, so they wouldn't have any input. May 11th, the action item 1502, the Township Board approved the contract. Okay. July 7th, Vortex estimate 569,192. Customer signature of acceptance. Brian Loftus. The first time I see Brian's name is July 7th. So July 7th, he started working on this. Then you've got July 24th, Vortex quote name option 2 and 1. Option 2, phase 1. A lot more going on with this thing. A lot more information. July 27th, Vortex contract signed by Brian Loftus, as we've already heard. The check for $125,061 Vortex deposit check request from Brian Loftus. So he signed the contract on the 27th of July. He requested the check request on the 27th of July. July 31st, check was cut. Signatures. I would hope so. Township agents agenda on the 10th. The study session, Recreation Department update. Then I asked a question. I said, have there been any payments made for the proposed splash park as of yet? I was told, this will take some research. That was 14 days, Mr. Loftus, 14 days after your initial contract signature. 14 days. I know how smart you are. And please let me finish.
You're 4.5 minutes also.
Please let me finish. I'm almost done. The 12th, there was a letter that went out by you, and it's been put into the record, and it says, I made an agreement with Treasurer Van Ost to prioritize the upcoming road millage and therefore delay any visible progress on the park. I do not consider this deceptive. Really? Come on. August 18th, Dale Ream sent a copy to Vortex. They've stopped all work on the splash park. No problem. Last two things. Public comment. On the 24th, Mrs. Darzniak answered my question from the 10th. And November 3rd is Election Day. It's a Tuesday. Coincidentally, November 4th is when the delivery date for the splash park materials are to be at Grosse Seal. It's all there. I don't think that's a coincidence. I thank you for your time.
Okay, I'm going to reiterate one more time. I don't sign the checks. When I sign the contract, that authorizes the process to continue. I didn't see the checks. You'll notice my signature was on the checks. When I said I didn't know a check had been cut, I did not know a check had been cut.
There were
It's
five
not
people
my
in this
part.
room that could have answered that question. You were the only one who said, we'll investigate. It could have been answered. Thank you.
All right. Now, Mr. Clark.
Woody Clark, Park Lane. This is on chip seal. East River Road and South Point are in good shape. Horse Mill isn't. It's a bunch of crap. Lumpy, bumpy. The culverts, you hit them in the dark, you jump all over the place. So it should be, we can paint them a different color so that people that are coming up on them know they're coming at you.
The culverts, what? You're talking about Horse Mill, right?
Horse Mill.
It is. Yeah, it didn't lay as flat as most of the chip seal. I don't know why.
It is lumpy and bumpy when you hit the culvert. I'll say the culvert like this.
Manholes?
Manhole. You want to use one manhole, culvert.
Yeah, because they're different. But yeah.
Well, it's a cover. Okay.
You hit the culvert, it is going to be bumpy.
It's going to get expensive.
Okay, I understand that, but I'm just saying it's in bad shape. You hit them, and you know where you're jumping all over the place. So if you got it timed, you know where to go. You might be on the left side of the road and the right side, and you're trying to play chase games. So maybe you better take a look at it again.
I'll take a look at it, Woody.
Okay. Now there's a piece of metal on Meridian just past the Meridian Bridge. It's on the ground. It's been there. Want to know when it's going to be replaced. I called Lorenda, but she's not here. She didn't return my phone call.
It's where they're tracing that water main leak, I believe, and they couldn't find the exact location, so they're still. Oh, okay.
Good drive.
So they did find the water leak.
Yes,
all right.
we did. Been there for about a week, 2 weeks now. Okay. Also, gravel at the end of Macomb Street. When's it going to put pavement back on?
Settles.
Huh?
As soon as it settles.
As soon as it settles?
It settles enough that we can put asphalt on top of it or concrete.
When do you think that will be? Been a week or so, 2 weeks now.
It takes time.
Okay. Dump to junk's going to be 10th and 11th? 10th and the 11th.
October?
Well, it's
Please,
not
Woody,
gonna-
come
not
on,
gonna
I'm
be
only
this
one
month.
man. I don't want to be accused of deceiving anybody.
Okay, well, no, it's going to be October.
Thank you.
October 10th or the 11th. Legal fees, I got you.
Legal fees in the amount of $1,396 to O'Reilly Rensselaer.
Who?
O'Reilly Rensselaer.
You, okay. All right. Any money has come back from Carl. We loaned them $30,000. Has he brought any money back to general fund where we ever got the money to?
That he hasn't had the fundraisers yet.
Yeah, there's one donation coming from Rotary. I don't know how big it is. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. The skating rink. I have never seen anybody skate. Not the hockey skates, inline skating. I've never seen anybody over there. That's what we built it for, wasn't it? For people to inline skate? I haven't seen one person. Not one. Plus, when it rains, there is a puddle. I don't know how big, but there's a puddle. Somebody wasn't taking care of business when they built the thing or watching it. I don't know who was in charge of watching it. I have no idea. But, let's see. That's it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Clark. Other public comment? Mr. Pilkington.
Good evening. Craig Pilkington, South Point. This has to do with the splash pad. The night that this passed on the 4-2 vote, I think I suggested and cautioned all of you that were here that you were moving very quickly and that you now owned this. And Mr. Van Oss, I'm certainly glad that you have looked into some practical experiences that some other communities have had. I don't know whether you're aware, but I think when the original presentation, it became very clear that we were going to have to rely on population from other communities. We didn't know what percentage, whether it be 20%, 25%, maybe as much as, maybe higher. Since that time, Taylor has committed over $300,000 to the development of a splash park, which again, now we've got another splash park in the mix that takes away from the critical mass that we might be able to depend upon. We never got input from the broad public took the time, were patient in our approach, and surveyed them to begin with. And I think the credibility of the board is put at risk. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is step back, especially in a year when we have a millage for the roads and our water distribution systems at stake, especially next spring when the schools will be back out with a 0.75 mil ballot proposal. The credibility of these entities, whether they be the schools or this township, cannot be put at risk by some boondoggle or some questionable expense. So I think you're doing the right thing by stepping back, taking a deep breath, qualifying what your costs would be, because I think it's in the best interest of the community. Now, I wrote something on a Facebook page, Grosse Ile Civic Issues. Please read it, and more than what I wrote, read the comments that you're getting from the many, many customers of yours that have lent their opinions. And good luck. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pilkington. Let me, and this is not a jibe, but we talk about surveying the residents. We have no methodology to survey the residents. We have no methodology. Okay. Other public comment. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, Bob, but I know you're always the gentleman.
Promise. Jody Morrow. I live on Knutson, and I came here because I felt, it won't take me 4 minutes because these ladies did a fantastic job educating me as well as all of you, but I came here because I felt I have a daughter that's in first grade. I go to Water's Edge. I am there every Sunday at Water's Edge with my daughter, and I feel if everyone went and talked to the people at Water's Edge, the splash park was not something that I heard. So to stand up here and say facts, I think we do need a survey. I think we do need to talk to the public. I came here for more education, and I also came here to say there are so many things that we could do at Water's Edge that could make it appealing for people, such as shade. You know, I have vitiligo. There is zero shade there. 4 lawn chairs. That's it, under the shade. I just don't feel a splash park is where we should be putting our energy at all, and our money. And we need to be educated. We need the information. The things that we saw today, where do I find them? I moved here a few years ago. I moved here during the election, and it was brutal. As a new homeowner moving on to Grosse Ile, this is my first meeting. I can't promise you I'll be back. It is, but where do I get that kind of information that I saw today? I didn't see what was displayed here today. Where does the public get that information? That's what I just need to know. Do you have an answer for me?
I don't. You know what? You want some information. Somebody else wants something else. We publish our minutes. We publish our agendas. Come to meetings. You would start at the Community Recreation Commission. They're the ones who presumably did the research, studied this, took it into consideration, and pushed it up with their recommendation to this board. And we act upon that. But this has been going on. This was not a rush job. We did our job on this. There's been a lot of chatter. Can we put more information on the website? We can. I'll check the hits. How many people checked the website? There was a comment there was no newspaper. Well, there were articles on this splash park in the newspaper, and I responded to one that was just erroneous information. I still have got my text. I'll be glad to give them to you. But if we ask, but again, this was a Recreation Commission function. It was a way to stop bleeding in the budget, subsidizing the pool complex to the tune of about $30,000 a year out of the rec budget. This was an opportunity to hopefully reverse those fortunes and to provide an amenity that will be attractive to new families. If the wading pool was what the customers wanted, it would be self-supporting. It isn't. And maybe it was in 1989 when the pools were built. I don't think it is now. I've looked at splash parks or these similar programs, facilities, various places. They all seem very popular. The kids, as soon as the buckets start filling, that's where the kids want to play. So maybe there's, we're obviously, it's a money issue in this case. It's
Absolutely.
not necessarily, and everything we do is a money issue.
Absolutely.
So,
but I think we were not educated. The ones that were, that go to the pool, the ones that are going to be spending the $650,000, where it's coming from, we were not educated. We did not hear about it, and I felt that there should be more communication, and that's why I came here today.
Okay. Well, thank you, and we hope to see you again. Well, the offer is open. Okay. Mr. Zalasko, I'm sorry.
Well, this definitely has been an education this evening. On the night that we voted on this splash park, I think it was suggested at that time that we might take a look at tabling the decision. There were 3 reasons given. Number 1 was allow the liaison for that commission to be here and speak and also be part of the vote. One of the other reasons was to get more public input. And one of the other reasons was to take a harder look at our facts and figures. Here we are tonight. That's exactly what our plan is tonight, right? So, okay, with that said, I want to thank everybody up here for your sincere, honest opinion of this splash park. I compliment you on stepping back and taking another hard look at it. I learned a lot here tonight. I learned things like I was not aware that we would go into a $500,000 plus project without including one of our team members here, our attorney. He plays an important part in this program. So please, we voted for you with confidence. Take a hard look at this project before you move forward with it. It's a lot of money, and it's coming from somewhere where we could probably use it somewhere else. Also, take a hard look at the department. Maybe you need a turnaround program before you start throwing any more money at it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Zalasko. Other comments from the public present? All right, with none offered, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Buddy, second by Clerk Ranka. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none offered. We'll call the meeting adjourned